Everybody, this is Bob Bechtold is our club coach chair. He coordinates and advises all of the club coaches. I believe to date we have about somewhere between 15 and 20 club coaches for clubs that are struggling with 12 or less members. Bob and I go ways back. We first met back at the the spring conference. Where was that, Bob? That was
could have been in Halifax.
Yeah, it was the Halifax one. Yeah, Bob's a great guy. I really like Bob. And with that, I'll turn it over to Bob.
All right, thank you, Shane. Good evening, everybody. This is Bob Bechtold. Like you said, I'm the club coach chair, and one of the things that I want to stress tonight is that I am acting as a resource. I am a resource for you. If you have any questions or issues as club coach, feel free to reach out, send me an email. If I have the information or the experience, I'll share it. If not, I can help you find the answers that you need to continue to move forward, or at least some suggestions you can try. In tonight's webinar, it's kind of interactive. I'm going to ask a couple questions. I would like you to either respond in the chat room or respond verbally to the questions. And maybe as a group, we will be able to provide you some guidance or some answers to your questions or suggestions that what you can use to move forward. One of the other things is I'm not the only resource that you have, and you probably already know this, but your district leaders, your club growth director, Shane Walsh, as well as your division director and area directors, all are actually resources that you can tap into and use to get questions or answers to your questions, or to get some suggestions of what may have worked or what hasn't worked in the past. In addition, you also have past club officers, not only in your club, but also in clubs that might be nearby or clubs with similar demographics. And of course, that can go worldwide if you know somebody in a different country or a different state or province where you can use as an informational or as a resource. One good example I'd like to give is that you can invite a district leader to your club meeting. That provides a speaker, a guest, a fresh pair of eyes to look at your meeting or your operations or your club climate in a different way. It usually energizes all of your members to have a higher executive or a higher district or director of some sort attend your meetings. I always recommend, if you're able to get a district leader to attend, to at least invite them and get them to show up a few times. Also, you can get other club officers or other club members to come and visit your club to help energize your club or to provide a little bit of variety in your club meeting. So is your club thriving or is it struggling? What is your club's climate? How is it operated, or what are your operations? What is the demographics, or what types of members do you have? And what are the attitudes that the club portrays or presents during the meeting? Do you follow the Toastmasters program, or do you go off on a tangent or try something new? So here's a question I'd like you all to respond. I think Jeff is monitoring the chat room. Why do some Toastmasters club, why are they vigorous or they're very productive? Why others barely survive? I mean, you see that when you go to district or when you look on the Toastmasters website, you can see there are some clubs that are just top of the line all the time. And then there are ones that seem to struggle. I'll give you a few moments, type in your responses, or respond verbally. Jeff, please tell me if you have anybody who's typing in. I'll continue to submit your comments, and I'll move on a little bit farther. The difference often lies in your club climate, like I hinted earlier. What are the conditions that might affect your club climate? On operations, do your clubs start and end on time? Is it well organized? Are the members prepared when they come to the meeting? Or is there a mad shuffle at the last minute? With your members, are they energized? Are they active? Do they participate? Do they volunteer for roles?
Hi, Bob. Can you hear me?
On their attitude, yes.
Sorry. Apparently, I have two mutes on my phone. You've had a whole host of folks. There was not radio silence. Ann Bessonette says location is important. Rhonda says culture. Ann mentions location being remote is also important. Doing moments of truth.
Excellent. I was actually going to cover some of that this evening, so
yep.
They're right on the mark.
Yep.
And that is correct. The location. We'll jump into that in the next slide or two.
Okay. There are a few more too. Tom mentions that there are not enough members interested in leadership. Rhonda says, is the club fun? And Donna Jean mentions positive attitude. Oh, and Sherry also mentions location. These are all very important aspects of a well-functioning club.
Very much so. Location is one. Officer roles. We're going to get into that one a little bit too, because I've experienced that one as well. Let me move on a little bit, and then we'll get into that real fast. To cover some of those points, you'll see that it'll come up in the presentation, and we can maybe discuss a little bit farther, dive deeper into that. So attitude. What are the members? Are they positive? Do they have positive attitudes? Are they energized when you walk in the room? Do they have personal goals, objectives? Are they trying to obtain those, or are they trying to help other members obtain what their goals are? Toastmasters is in the business of helping others achieve their personal goals. That increases the energy. It changes the club climate. Before we get into location, when is the club meeting? What day of the week? Or what time of the day? It affects the aspects of the club climate. Who's your target audience? Is it on a college campus? Is it a corporate club that may be closed to the public? Maybe it's in a retirement village like the MDI Toastmasters. We actually meet in a over 55 community center. The time of the day, time of the week, the day of the week, Monday through Friday. If it's a corporate club at lunch, that might work for the corporate club. But if you're trying to run a noontime meeting and it's open to the public, many people work. They cannot take that extra hour or 2 hours to drive to the meeting, go to the meeting, and come back. If you're on a college campus, are you offering it 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock at night when dinner is offered in the cafeteria? Are you competing with other obligations or competing with food? Should be, as time goes over, your club demographics are going to change. Your members are going to change. And you should evaluate where it is being held, when it's being held, and what time it's being held. Early on with MDI Toastmasters, we actually changed our location. We kept the same day and time, but we changed the location. And that was due to interferences of other activities occurring at the exact same location. We were in a YMCA, and the kids were running in and out of the meeting. It was disturbing. It was breaking up the meeting. We couldn't get a private room. How many times do you meet a month? I know on the MDI Toastmasters, we meet every Wednesday, year-round, unless it's a holiday. One thing we don't have to worry about, or our members don't have to worry about, is this the second or fourth Wednesday, or the first or third Wednesday? I can't remember what day the club meets. We meet every Wednesday. Yeah, and yes, in the fall or the winter or in the summer, some meetings actually have week attendance because everybody's on holiday, or vacation, or it's close to a holiday, and there may not be a full complement of Toastmasters at the meeting. But we know that we have a meeting every Wednesday night. We don't have individuals who join in May or June, and then we close down for 3 months for the summer months, and then try to recruit them again back in September. We meet every week. If you can't make it, you can't make it. But we know we meet every Wednesday, and that was what worked for our club. Because we tried shutting down in the summertime, and we'd get a whole rash of new members for Talk Up Toastmasters, and then we'd kindly inform them that we were closing down for 3 months, and that just didn't work very well for us. So we continued to meet every Wednesday throughout the year. But it affects your club climate. The location, here we go. We heard some of the comments, location. Absolutely. Is it easy and accessible to get to? Is it visible? I mean, if you're on a college campus, your college students can easily find room A354 in Franklin Building. They know where it's at. It's not a problem for them to get to. But if you're in the general public and you have to park your vehicle in the visitor parking lot, walk across campus to try to find where Franklin Building is, you may not want to attend that club. You may say that's too much of a problem. It changes your club climate. Is it readily accessible and easy to get to? Is it easy to find? Do they have to navigate stairs, or is there an elevator readily available? Some people might be physically challenged and can't handle the stairs. Is the parking lot well lit, or is the walkway or walk path free of slip, trips, and falls? I mean, around here in the state of Maine, in the wintertime, you don't want to be walking across the icy parking lot to get to some third floor classroom for a Toastmasters meeting, and hopefully you can find the Franklin Building somewhere in there. Is it in a safe neighborhood? Is the parking lot well lit? You have a total range of individuals who are coming to Toastmasters. And if your club is not easily accessible, easy to find, and easy to get to, it will affect membership, but it will affect who's in your club. Does anybody have any other challenges that they would like to add to that list? Please submit your chat in the chat box.
So far, everyone's being shy. Maybe you just covered everything, Bob.
All right, that's okay. They all spoke up early on, and they all brought up some good points. And one of those points I want to discuss here and have everybody tie into or comment on, I think it was Tom's comment regarding you don't have any members who want to take a leadership role. Does anybody have any suggestions on that? I continually refer back to the Competent Leader Manual and trying to get the individuals to review what they need to improve their leadership skills, and then try to get them to fill in a role, a leadership role, an officer role.
Okay, so we've got a few answers for your first question about some clubs have different meeting dates at different locations. That can certainly be confusing for visitors, even long-term members. And then the length of the meeting may be a factor. But there's quite a bit of folks talking about leadership roles. So Rhonda suggests just making sure that, or educating members that the leadership roles exist, which can be difficult to recruit members or leaders when there are only 5 to 8 members in the club. Boy, and if there's no French training, I guess that's especially difficult for French clubs. Ooh. Rhonda suggests holding an officer meeting as part of the regular meeting. That's an interesting idea, Bob. You want to comment on that?
Yeah, I like that idea. I might even use that one, because we're actually having that same issue in MDI Toastmasters. It's like, all right, who's going to be officers next year? And we have a variety of individuals who are not regular attendees or are leaving for career or educational purposes. So we're losing a bunch of members moving out of state. We have a brand new person probably joining this week. I have one or two other individuals who are not, they're physically challenged. They're not going to take on a leadership role. We will ask them, but they depend on somebody else to get them to and from the meeting. They don't drive, or they don't drive in the dark, or something to that order. That is a really good way to do it, though, is to hold an officers meeting during a regular meeting so that they can see what's involved, or they can, you know, an open questions, so they can ask questions about it. That's actually a pretty good idea. But you need to educate them, because, you know, a lot of them think that, oh, officer, it's so much work, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be that, have that commitment. What do you mean I got to go to officers training twice a year and use up one of my I don't want to use up one of my Saturdays. Mm-hmm. And I think once they realize what they can learn from it, I think if you educate them more, I think they'll be more willing, or they'll be wanting and volunteer for that position.
Hey, Bob. Ann Bissonette has a question, an odd question, I think. She says, what about the rule that non-officers cannot attend? I'm assuming she's talking about officer meetings. I personally have never heard of that. I've always thought of officer meetings as open to all members.
I thought they were, especially when you're trying to mentor somebody and bring them in. Mm-hmm. Don't know about that rule. If you can find that one, we'd all be interested in seeing that one.
Yeah. Ann, why don't you unmute yourself? Yeah, go ahead, and you can.
Okay. When I became area director, I was told I could not attend unless I was invited. And then again, when I was a coach and coaching, first thing I was told, I cannot attend an officer meeting unless I'm invited in.
Well,
and I was told that by district.
What do you think about that, Bob? It's interesting.
Right. Well, as a club coach, I might see how the officers would take offense to somebody inviting themselves to an officer meeting. But that was where you're going to need to work with your communication with the club officers, that you are the club coach, and ask them if you can attend one of their meetings.
But district had told me which regulation, and Heather was the one who had pointed it out, exactly which one. And she had quoted it to me, and it did say, unless you are invited, you are not to attend, and any non-officers cannot attend an officer meeting.
Well, that's interesting, and I suppose that's a different culture in each club, because I've attended a handful. I don't attend often, but I've attended a handful of officer meetings just by showing up when I knew they had one.
I'll look it up, and if I do find it, I'll send it to the two of you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, I'm writing that one down.
Yeah, but Bob, I liked your solution that if there is resistance, that's really between the coach and the district leadership, right? Between the club growth director and other district leaders should find a way to get past that resistance if the club is resistant.
Yeah, if the club's resistant, then they really don't want the club coach's help. They're not open to the club coach is going to go into the officers meeting, and they're going to be able, even if they don't say a word the entire meeting, they're going to be able to observe the culture of the officers and how well they play together, or how well they don't play together, or what they're trying to achieve and how they're going to set their goals. And that way, that club coach is going to be able to provide very valuable information based on how the officers act in an officer meeting. They can also go to a regular club meeting that's open to individuals. I can see what the club is open, but doesn't necessarily mean the executive committee is open. But it definitely would have a conversation with the club president to see if he would allow you to attend the club officers meeting. And if not, then you'll have to talk with the club growth director or the district team to figure out how best to help that club if they're not allowing the club coach to attend the officer meeting.
So Bob, Donna Jean posted in the chat room, she mentioned that her club has officer meetings before their regular club meetings. It's open to all members, but they have it before the club meeting so that they're able to have their normal meeting at its normal schedule, and it stays to an hour. I know many clubs do stuff like that. They'll have the officer meeting either before or after the club meeting.
Yes, we meet, I think it's the third Wednesday of every month. We meet for an hour after our regular club meeting. So for that night, and I think it goes back to Ann's comment, our club meetings are 1 hour long. They're not an hour and a half. They're not 2 hours long, unless it's a speech contest or some special event, maybe that's potluck or something like that. We'll add a half an hour, 45 minutes to the meeting, and it usually goes longer because people hang around and have a good time. But the meetings are always 1 hour, in and out, starts at 6, ends at 7. And our executive committee meeting is, I think it's the second or third Wednesday of every month. It is after the meeting, and we meet for an hour. It starts at 7 and ends at 8. Some people come to the meeting without having dinner. Other ones have kids at home, and so we do not keep them past any extra time. Anything goes beyond that is done by email, outside communication, or maybe even a separate meeting, or carried over to the next month. Executive committee meetings should also meet once a month. If you're meeting every other week, then I would still recommend the executive officers meet monthly and set goals for each officer that are achievable, and set a timeline that are achievable. So they got to be small and measurable, and then each club will see progress through the club coach. I mean, using the club coach, that's what the club coach is going to do, is work with the club officers to set measurable goals and movement into the to incorporate the master's process or procedure practices, especially if they've gotten off of their have taken a side trip. And I've heard clubs that just do table topics. They don't give any speeches. I've heard clubs that don't give jokes, or they don't measure or time anybody. And if they've gotten off of that program, then the club coach is there to help them get back on the program and help them understand why they need to stay with the program and how that benefits them.
So I've got a few more comments. A few more comments from the chat room about club officers. Rhonda mentions that there's a successful club series presentation on the officer roles. She actually brings up a good point. There's a whole host of them that are good for, any of the successful club series presentations would be good for a club to present, especially if they're struggling with one aspect of it. And then Shane also mentions that his club, I guess they have executive meetings on a non-club night. So it's a different meeting, but they do invite the members.
We used to do that, but our current club president, due to scheduling and workload, we moved it to the back end of one of the club meetings, and we don't seem to have, it didn't seem to bother anybody that much, except they didn't have to drive an extra night to the meeting space. In fact, our last meeting was all on the telephone. It was a conference call. I think it was a snowy evening. Nobody wanted to go out and drive, so we held our meeting on a conference call, and every officer gave their role. we left, and it was like, wow, we can do this one again. It didn't have to be face-to-face. If we actually had to meet, we could all do it a conference call, and it worked for everybody. My slide presentation jumped twice, but I wanted to bring out there are two other commonly known resources that a club coach can use. I highly recommend you look at them, review them with your club that you're coaching, and that is, of course, the Moments of Truth. The Toastmasters Promise is another one, but Moments of Truth, and there is a club coach troubleshooting guide. A club coach troubleshooting guide. If you go on the Toastmasters International website and do a search for that, it will come up. It is a questionnaire. You can have the officers fill that out. You could fill it out with the officers, and you will be able to identify strengths and weaknesses of the club, and then be able to address those weaknesses. They're right there on paper, and they're, of course, when you go into the Moments of Truth, it'll most likely tell you how to. The officers, when everybody stops commenting in the chat room, I'd like to go back and just revisit how to get members to take a leadership role, and then get some more suggestions from the group.
I wonder, Bob, how many clubs have like assistants? You know, for instance, the VP Ed could have an assistant that does scheduling, or an assistant that does whatever.
Sometimes we have that at MDI. I don't know how many clubs have it. I've had a webmaster. Somebody wanted to take on the website. They needed it for their leadership role, and they wanted to learn how the Free Toast Host website worked. And so they took over the website for 6 months or 9 months, and they learned how to insert photos, put announcements on it, set up the agendas, and that's a good way of using the assistant, is to get somebody to step in, and they're ready to take on the new role when the officer position comes open. You should be starting that now.
Yeah, I think you're right about that, or even months before. But Donna Jean mentioned that several clubs that she works with have assistants, and that Rhonda suggests a club officer in training role. That's kind of a neat idea.
Club officer in training role. Wow.
Yeah.
Excellent ideas.
Yeah, Sherry mentioned. Sherry mentions that the VP of Ed role is big. Honestly, I think it is. It's the most busy role of the club executives, and she thinks that it should be distributed. I think a lot of VP Eds do ask for help, and that's part of the, part of the leadership, the self-leadership development. Tom mentions, though, that for struggling clubs, right, a lot of clubs that need coaches, that's tough to find enough officers, much less assistants. I wonder about that. So my question to the group:
if you have a struggling club, you barely have enough. You barely have enough for your club officers. So
yeah.
You're doing double duty, so you're not going to end up having anybody assisting or anybody in training unless they want to work on it the following year. And of course, most of us already know the only role that can't be repeated twice back to back is president, or not supposed to be. So every role, if you want to be VPE 2 years in a row, you could.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody becomes a membership person.
Yeah, Ann Bissonette also mentioned shadowing. That's another leadership development technique where they can kind of learn a role.
Excellent. In closing, strong membership is important, but it's only part of the formula to be a successful club. Clubs should focus first on the quality and the effective presentation of such club meetings. and it goes back to the first impressions and the moments of truth. If I get to do another webinar, the next one will be on making the club connection. That's my plan. We'll see how that works out. I hope I gave you some information that you can use. If you still have any questions, or I didn't seem to answer any of your questions, or answer exactly how you wanted, please send me an email, and we'll work through it and see what we can come up with.
Thank you.
Should we open it up for questions, Bob, for any follow-up questions?
Sure, absolutely.
Bob, I have a question, a comment. I'm not sure really what it is. The club I am coaching is Sackville in Nova Scotia here. And as far as their meetings go, they run a very, very tight meeting, and they certainly follow Toastmasters, but the program. But we're struggling with getting people in the door. And yeah, as you go through this, there's a few things that I have thought about, and I think your presentation reinforces it, is things like the time. We meet every week with the exception of summer, which I think is the club should be meeting in the summer, or at least every second week or something, as opposed to every week. But the time is a two-hour meeting, and I'd like to get an idea out there. Evening clubs, are they typically 2 hours, or do they go to an hour?
The MDI Toastmasters Club started under Sally Boggs, who is a DTM. If you've ever met her, you'd understand that she is, why she is. She's an excellent Toastmaster. She has coached us very well. We have always run a 1 hour meeting. Like I said, the only time it goes beyond an hour is if it's a half an hour or an hour potluck or some other open house event where it goes longer. I've always had a child at home under 16, so I'm not leaving him unguarded or no homework for any length of time. And so I counted on that 1 hour, and I was done. I have about a 10-minute ride to the meeting on either end of it, and we're able to keep that to 1 hour. When you get to 2 hours, unless you have a lot of speakers, I don't see how it can run for 2 hours. I'd be interested in knowing how come it goes to 2 hours and what the club is doing to fill that time.
Well, I think part of it too is I think a culture here, and for a lot of clubs, is that they have a break and a snack and treats and all that, which it lengthens the meeting.
That's
and
all
I'm
great.
Curious.
But could that happen before the meeting starts and not actually be part of the meeting, so it's optional? I don't know.
Well, no, and Jeff, you say that, and the Truro Club, who also is struggling, that's one thing that they changed. They had a 2 hour meeting, and they changed it to an hour and a half meeting with their social time at the very end, which allows members who are not able to take that 2 hours due to family commitments, and it still allows them to participate in the Toastmasters meeting, but not necessarily they have an earlier leave time.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've even heard of clubs that have a natural endpoint, like around table topics, or after table topics are over or before table topics start, say folks that have to leave, now's a good time to leave.
Right.
I like this, having the social before or after, and then the club meeting is the business of the club, right? personal
Yeah,
development.
exactly. Yeah. Okay.
Breaking it up in the middle of the meeting, you're lengthening the meeting. That you know, part of Toastmasters, you're learning how to run a meeting. When you're at work, you don't normally have a snack break.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's true.
No, and my other club so I've joined Sackville. My other club, provincially speaking, we're a noontime club and an hour. You know, we miss out on the opportunity to have that social time, but we get in, we're there for actually 50 minutes. And when I look at the two, except for a few extra table topics in the Sackville Club, many days we have two speakers. Sackville has two speakers, so I'm not sure we're getting the benefit of 2 hours in Sackville.
I agree. I mean, we have 3 speakers, probably 5 table topics, a joke of the week, the 3 evaluators, the timer or technician, and we're within an hour.
Yeah.
I mean, it rolls down to right down to the hour, and we might have to shorten up the number of table topics. That's your adjustable point, but we make it an hour because we have individuals that have things they've got to do. Some people hang around for another 15, 20 minutes after the meeting to either socialize or the mentor-mentee conversations.
Yeah, yeah. I'm going to meet with the executive, and I'm going to bring up some of these points with them. I'm a little hesitant, not hesitant, sorry, it's not the right word. I'm a little bit concerned about their reaction to it, because anytime I've made suggestions, I very quickly hear, well, we've tried that already. That doesn't work. So if you could give me a suggestion, anybody, as to how I can present some of these pieces with a little more tact than maybe I normally do.
I think this.
Anna, I have a suggestion.
Okay.
I belong to 2 clubs. One is a corporate club, which is my home club, and we met the first Tuesday and the third Thursday at work. And the first Tuesday was an hour and a half, and then the Thursday meeting was 2 hours and 15 minutes. Really, it was like being held hostage. But I didn't know any better because it was my first club. And then I went to Kennebec Valley. They had 3 times as many members, and like Bob said, 3 speeches, 3 evaluators, 5 table topics. They got it all done in an hour. I went back, said, let's do this for an hour, and got a lot of pushback. We've always done it this way. Or we tried it once before and it didn't work. And I said, well, let's just try it for 3 months. If it doesn't work after 3 months, we'll go back to an hour and a half. We're at an hour meeting, because what happened was we found that especially a corporate club, with an hour meeting, it was easier for people to come. They could come on their lunch, or if they had to flex time, they were only flexing 15 minutes as opposed to an hour and a half or 2 hours and 15 minutes. But it was a challenge. But just saying, let's try it for X amount of weeks or months or however, seemed to really, they agreed that wouldn't hurt. Maybe try that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Welcome.
I would try that approach, and I agree with you. I mean, if you're on a lunch hour, actually MDI Toastmasters also meets on the 2nd and 4th Fridays at a different location at Jackson Laboratory. And those individuals only have an hour for lunch. So they're in and out. They're in the meeting. They have a great time. It's high energy. We get our 2 or 3 speeches in. There's a couple conversations, and then they're back to work again, and that works for them.
Rhonda also had a suggestion about the clubs that don't want to do something. She says that when you hear that they've already tried it before, just say that, yeah, but you're a different group now. Kind of throw it back on them, right? They've learned, they've grown. That's a good idea.
Yeah, because they are a different group, right?
Yeah. I also like
Somehow
the general theme of helping them discover why they need to do it, right? Give them more of the reasons why they should try it instead of the excuses. Someone else mentioned that, focus on the benefits, I guess. What have you got to lose?
Right.
you can figure out a way to make it their idea, then it'll work as well.
Well, yeah. Oh no, they're pretty hard on what they're doing.
The MDI Toastmasters, I know that we're very, we've tried that before. We've done that before when it comes to Speechcraft. We've tried Speechcraft 2 or 3 times, and a lot of extra people, a lot of extra evenings, and through the local adult education program, and it just never. I think it's produced out of all 3 classes, it's produced 1 new member.
Yeah, some clubs have great success with that, and some clubs don't, and I don't know the secret there. But Rhonda says that instead of saying why we can't do something, we should say why we can. Back to that positive.
Yes.
Oh man, good. Oh, we have officer shadowing. We have getting them to try something new, or Toastmasters is about change. We are changing. We are improving. So let's see if we can do it faster. Let's see if we can do it in a shorter amount of time. Try it for a couple weeks, couple months, and see how it works. My recommendation is you meet. I actually like the other suggestion I heard. If you're going to shut down in the summertime, then go to, instead of every week, go to a every other week meeting, so that if somebody joins in June, you're not saying, well, I was our last meeting, we'll see you in September. You are engaging them and keeping them active as soon as they join.
Yeah, and the other thing, it's on there, they may not be able to attend the meetings in the summer or even none, but at least it's still on their schedule. It's still on their radar.
I have a member who can't drive in, and I haven't seen him for 6 months. He disappeared in October, and he showed up last Wednesday. Yep, not dark at 7 o'clock anymore. I can come back to the meeting. He cannot drive after, and it's just one of our members that we have to. But that's okay. Welcome back. Here we go. Hey, you haven't been here for a while. Read the club mission statement. We got him right back into the swing of things. But he lives too far away for anybody to carpool for him. He just can't show up in the winter months. Well, I thank you for all your input and all your suggestions. During my summer, the French clubs have a lobster feast. Oh, can I come?
Awesome. Yes, Bob, I'm sure they would be glad to have you come visit them. That's a great idea for a summer, even an outdoor meeting, as long as the weather permits, outdoor barbecue, speech.
It allows them to see each other. It allows them to see each other and keep connections. Even though they're not meeting, they might just get together for food, and it keeps that connection going so that September is not so abrupt.
Excellent. Another thing we had a speakathon. We were coming up on the end of June, and we had too many speeches to have and not enough meetings. So we had an open house at my house, opened up the garages. It was a potluck, had a big barbecue, and heard about 5 or 6 speeches.
Yeah, they always end up having table topics. It's very popular. I had a question. The club I'm currently coaching is very resistant to any suggestions of recruiting, and they've got excuses for them all. And it's frustrating because they're down to 7, if not 6 members. and only 4 and 5 are attending weekly, every week, every meeting. So it's a major problem, but they don't really want to address it. Everything else is good.
What size town are you in, and do any of those members attend a conference?
Some are planning on coming to Halifax. The rest cannot because they don't have enough English to be able to understand. And it's a small town. But
well, you know me, I'll sit at that table.
If they chartered at 20, there's no excuse for them to at least have half of that, or 2/3 of it, I would think.
I think, have you guys had a joint conference call with Bob Bechtold and the area director and the club officers, or at least several of the club officers? I think having those kind of brainstorming calls can be helpful in situations like you're describing.
Is there another Toastmasters club near you?
That's another idea.
Yes, and one of the president of the other club who's also having the same problems. She's been coming. She's also coaching the Trackety Club, and so the two clubs are kind of working together. Unfortunately, Trackety seems to think they know it all, and they kind of have that attitude, but they're not doing much, or they're doing the same thing that doesn't work, and they know it.
And you have club officers that are membership, vice president of membership, right?
Yes.
And vice president of public relations.
I'm not sure. One of those two positions has now been left.
Okay.
So, but all officers of that club are supposed to be helping with recruiting, but nobody is stepping up. Even the president. The president is the worst. She has excuses for everything that is being suggested by myself and the other coach.
All right, so you're making suggestions. Have you asked her for her suggestion?
Yes. And her suggestion, she made a suggestion, but she's not even keeping her own. I'm like, good, you've got ideas, but she's not following through on them at all.
Hey, Bob, in interest of time, we have 2 minutes left. So I guess I'd ask, is there, because we're going to move on to the next topic, next session. Anyone have any brief suggestions for Anne? Otherwise, I feel like this is a fantastic topic for another webinar, Bob, in the next week or two. How do you deal with clubs that, they say they want to do stuff, but they don't seem to have the traction, right? They don't seem to be following through on the things they are committing for.
Yeah, excellent. I think I'm going to cut it short because you've got to go. Somebody else here says they've got the same issue.
Yeah, Sherry's got the same issue. To be honest, I think that's a very common thread. Toastmasters is a volunteer organization, so finding that motivation, finding a way to motivate folks is definitely a key aspect of it. So, yeah, Bob, I'm all for setting up this topic in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, great. Just drop me an email if you want to continue any of this, and I'm going to hang up right now and let Jeff go. Thanks for attending, and we'll hopefully see most of you at the conference.
Thank you, Bob. Everyone's saying thank you. And remember, folks, answer the survey. So Bob can get credit for his hard work in putting this together, and so you can get credit for attending. I just posted the link to the survey in the chat room. Okay, so I'm officially ending this. Click.
Can you hear, Jeff, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Tom. So you,
Okay.
Yep, your session will start in a few minutes. It would be convenient for me if we actually close the GoToMeeting session and start a new one. Are you okay with that, or would you want to just...
I'm